Minutes. 2 minutes? Thank you very, very much. It is Rowan McBennett, our musician for this morning. And I'm Mary Van Gemmer, and we are going to be lamenting our way towards liberation today. Ooh. And thank you to Runa as our tech person back there for people who need to go online. And our coordinator is Catherine Sullivan for this program here, and I really want to thank her for her help too. And the theme for January is repair. Repair. What? What? I'm sorry. What? The story. Start. Okay. Oh, S-T-O-R. Oh, the Y. Oh, okay. Well, you know, from here it likes to S-T-A-R-T to me. You know? It's a matter of perspective, isn't it? And viewing. Okay. Well, good. Well, we're starting off on a good little laugh here. This is good. Good morning, and welcome to the Vashon Island Unitarian Universalists. My name is Mary Van Gemmer, and I will be your service leader today. If you are visiting, please participate as you feel comfortable. You're invited to stay and introduce yourself in conversation following the service. And all of our goodies back there, too, are looking very good. Our congregation is committed to individual freedom of belief, welcomes diversity, seeks to promote a sense of community, and fosters religion which enriches the spirit. We are a mostly lay-led community, strengthened and enriched by weaving together the volunteer contributions of members and friends. Our community is supported and guided by our minister, Reverend Victoria Poling. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Squamish Coast Salish Native people. The Puyallup people have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time and continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step towards true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous peoples of this land and beyond. As we begin our service, please take a couple of breaths to become fully present. Relax and bring your attention into this moment of communal reflection and sharing. I'd like to invite Kim Combach to light our chalice and share our chalice lighting reading.
We light today's chalice with these words from Andrea Marie Brown. If there happens to be a multitude of griefs upon you, individual and collective, or fast and slow, or small and large, add equal parts of these considerations, that the broken heart can cover more territory, that perhaps love can only be as large as grief demands, that grief is growing up of the growing up of the heart that bursts boundaries like an old skin or a finished life. That grief is gratitude. That your body will feel only as much as it is able to. The ones you grieve may be grieving you. That the sacred comes from the limitations, that you are excellent at loving.
Thank you, Kim. I'd now like to introduce our guest speaker, Elizabeth Micah Geschir. Elizabeth is a descendant of Dutch, Protestant Christian, working class immigrants who were mostly farmers. She is a full-time healthcare chaplain and a newly fellowshipped UU minister living in Seattle. Elizabeth is passionate about being outside, swimming, dismantling systems of oppression inwardly and outwardly, and singing, grieving, and dancing in community. Welcome, Elizabeth. We look forward to hearing your message today.
Thank you. It is good to be here. Can you hear me okay? No? All right, we'll try that. Thank you. Let us open our hearts for worship with these words written by Sharon Wiley. We speak so often of brokenness in religious life. Let us speak today of wholeness. You are welcome here. Every part of you, just the way you are. Here you do not need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding. No exerting yourself or trying to do more. You have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here. Nothing to prove to me or the person sitting next to you or the children or to anyone. You don't have to try and be witty or be more quiet or more outgoing. You are beautiful. Every part of you beautiful just the way you are. You do not need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful just the way they are. You are extraordinary. Each and every one of you different from each and beautiful in your own breathtaking way. Come, let us worship together.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that wonderful opening words. Our first song is hymn number 123. 123. Spirit of Life. Rowan will play the melody once, and then we'll join in singing. I'd like to invite our worship song leaders to come up front. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn 123, found in your gray hymnal. So you're going to do a little introduction, just short, and then we'll go on. justice, roots firmly close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Oh, rousing beginning. Today we're going to switch up our usual order, and we're now going to joys and concerns. We will pause the record. As members and friends of the Vashon Island Unitarian Universalists, we commit to supporting our congregation. Financial resources help us pay speakers and staff, support our social justice programs, and maintain our building. Please support VIUU with your pledges and offerings so that we can continue to be a vital community. This week's offering supports our beloved VIUU community. As we receive our offering, please join in singing, "We Give Thanks." The words are printed on the back of the laminated order of service and are on the inside cover of the gray hymnal. Passing the baskets, please. This precious day, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for the times we share. Precious day. Thank you. Now we're going to transition right into the sermon. Elizabeth and Rowan. There's a song called "Carry This All." Okay.
So yeah, I would like to teach, perhaps co-teach, a song called "Carry This All" by Alexandra Blakely, in lieu of a reading, essentially, before the sermon, so it's an interactive part. So the disclaimer is that I'm not usually, a soloist. I do love singing in groups. So I am modeling the courage to be vulnerable. Rowan might help me out, those of you who also love to sing. It is a very simple song, so please jump in as soon as you feel comfortable. We'll see. I'll play with the microphone or not. So it goes like this. You do not carry this all alone. Why don't you repeat that back? You do not carry this all alone. Excellent. No, you do not carry this all alone. No, you do not carry this all alone. This is, frog in my throat. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So, let's try that part. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So, and then it repeats. You do not carry this all alone. Excellent. So let's try that again just a couple times through all together. And Rowan and others might harmonize as they are so willing and able. You do not carry this all alone. Oh, I forgot a part. Not really a part, but my invitation now that we've learned the song is to really try to feel into it. They're beautiful, simple words. And so you might practice, singing them to yourself or to each other, sort of beaming the words in this community, okay? So let's start over. You do not carry this all alone. No, you do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So you do not carry this all alone. One more time. You do not carry this all alone. No, you do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So you do not carry this all alone. Thank you. I wonder what your stories about grief and lamentation are. I invite you to take a moment, actually, to reflect. What is your story about grief? What is your story about lamentation? To you, that might mean the story that you inherited about perhaps whether or not it's okay to cry or to rage or to feel certain feelings. Or perhaps what comes to mind are certain griefs or lamentations that you are personally carrying this morning. So I learned that song that I just taught you all earlier last year in March at a grief retreat co-facilitated by the writer of the song, Alexandra Blakely, and Lawrence Cole, who is also a song catcher and grief tender. They opened the retreat by naming and honoring some of their grief teachers. And two of those important teachers were Sobonfu Some and Maladome Some. Lawrence narrated some of Maladome's story, as he was the first teacher that Lawrence had at the age of 35, and Lawrence is now in his 80s. He shared how Maladome was removed from his community of the Dagara people in Burkina Faso at a very young age. and endured abuse in Jesuit boarding schools for 16 years. How Malidome reintegrated into his village as a young adult and then went on to study in France, the country that colonized his people. And how there he awakened to a very important recognition. These people don't know how to grieve, how to stay open, and so they have no wisdom. And so, as the story goes, Malidome and Sobonfu were later sent by the Dagara elders to teach grief rituals in the West, emissaries of soul medicine for the soul disease that is colonialism. In his book on grief called The Wild Edge of Sorrow, Francis Weller writes, "Grief both acknowledges what has been lost and ensures that we don't forget what must be remembered. But as my former dean at Vanderbilt Divinity School, Emily Towns, has said, you cannot remember what you never knew," referring to the colonial strategy of forgottenness. Another dear professor of mine, Dr. Rogers Vaughn, was the first one to teach me that grief is love in absence. I'll say that again. Grief is love in absence. As you might have heard, I feel like nowadays many people talk about that connection between grief and love because it is part of this process, this emergence of reclaiming grief as a medicine. However, today I want to focus on a particular expression of grief that we call lament for two reasons. The first is that while grieving can have more of a personal or private connotation, lament, I think, has a public connotation. In lament, we weep or wail or mourn or rage, cry, scream, flail. We passionately employ songs and poetry or any art form to insist that our pain and suffering be witnessed. Whether that witness is a pillow in our bedroom, or the stars, or a god or goddesses, or our fellow human beings. The second reason that I want to focus on lament is that it contains political possibility and power. A profound example of how lament can be political and therefore prophetic is described in a book called Dangerous Voices by Gail Holst Warhaft, which examines how the government of Greece has almost fully eradicated the tradition of professional women mourners because their lamentations posed a threat to the justification of war. Pause to breathe in this truth with me, that a government would outlaw women from publicly mourning the deaths of its country's young people at war because their lamentations were not good for the economy. Another example of lament being political and prophetic that comes to mind for me are the student protest encampments that took place at major universities all across the United States last spring, where the students came together as acts of resistance to their institutions and nations' complicity in this ongoing genocide in Gaza and now southern Lebanon. And as we witnessed, their ceremonies of lament were met with brutal police violence. It seems like not a lot of us Unitarian Universalists are particularly practiced at lament. It might have something to do with the Puritan history in this country, but in studying for this homily, I learned, in fact, that from an article in the UU World magazine by Miriam Renaud, that not a single hymn or reading in singing the living tradition is categorized as lament. And I also looked up grief, of course, and only a couple are categorized as grief. This is all the more curious to me because of our Judeo-Christian heritage and the fact that there's a whole book in the Hebrew Bible entitled Lamentations. Yet we know that our UU subculture swims in the dominant US culture, in which the systems of white supremacy and heteropatriarchy and capitalism work tirelessly to deny death and suffering and minimize grief, or really to minimize all so-called negative emotions. Social media posts constantly tell us that we should be happy. You should be happy, and if you're not, you can buy happiness. Here are all the products that can make you happy. Something I have learned from several different womanist scholars is that every ideology has a theology. Every ideology has a theology, meaning that every idea or system of ideas has a belief or a value at its foundation. So for example, just to make sure that we're all talking the same language, patriarchy is an ideology, right? About men being better than women. We're not a fan. We don't support patriarchy. However, the theology behind patriarchy in our culture comes from a lot of theology from the Hebrew Bible, the whole Bible, about beliefs such as that God is male, or that God created Adam before Eve, that Eve was the first one to sin, and so on and so on. So what that means for us is that the work of liberation is not simply about policy changes or system changes, although that is also relevant, but also about deconstructing the theologies that have manifested so much harm and death, and constructing, or perhaps you could even say resurrecting, new, life-giving theologies that can seed and germinate and grow and bear fruit. So an example to me of a nutritious, delicious fruit is, in our tradition, love at the center. Love at the center is a fruit of a life-giving theology that comes from the deeply rooted trees of Unitarianism and Universalism in our tradition. Love at the center is good news. And thus, love at the center is an ideal starting point for constructing theologies of grief and lament. For where there is love, there is loss. So what is a UU theology of that lament that could, well, liberate us toward lamenting? There is a feminist theologian named Mary McClintock Fulkerson who built her work on the idea that theology is a response to a wound. Some other theologians added to her work and summarized it this way: in its most primary sense and purpose, theology is a visceral and sensual response to hurts and harms. I need a glass of water. Theology is a visceral and sensual response to hurts and harms. So I remember this one time I was biking through the streets of Minneapolis, where I used to live, on a beautiful fall day in my late 20s, and I decided it would be fun to bike through a pile of leaves toward the side of the road. But I wasn't aware that they were wet on the bottom, so as soon as I tried to go through the pile of leaves, my bike immediately fell under me and I slipped sideways and landed on my left knee. I cried out in pain, tearing up. And there was a person walking by on that sidewalk. And I swear to this day that the tears flowed freely in those 2 seconds when I realized that the person had just kept walking by and were not going to check on me. Sure, my scraped knee also hurt a little bit, but it hurt me a lot more that my fellow human being didn't pause to care. So to me, that is where a UU theology of lament can begin, by simply asking ourselves and each other, where does it hurt? Where does it hurt? I am reading a book right now called What It Takes to Heal: How Transforming Ourselves Can Change the World by Prentice Hemphill, in which they reflect on how oppressive ideologies, which became systems, cut us off from the wisdom of our own bodies. They write, "Somewhere along the way, we were taught to stop feeling instead of being taught to stop what harms us, as though feeling were our enemy, as though the feeling were hurting us. To move forward and address the harm, we have to feel." So when we ask, where does it hurt? We might be surprised by our own responses. Perhaps, like Prentice, we were hurt by being cut off from our feelings, and our own ability to lament or grieve has been stunted. Perhaps one of our wounds is that we have a very hard time knowing how we personally feel, let alone expressing one's emotions. I can really relate to this as someone who grew up as a Dutch-American family of Calvinists, where I was taught to believe that thinking was superior to feeling, and in which I tried to manage the big explosive emotions of my family rather than to listen to what my body might need or was feeling. As an adult, and especially as a chaplain, it has become an ongoing practice to learn or relearn to pay attention to how I feel and to find healthy ways of expressing my feelings. So if the first step in a UU theology of lament is to ask, where does it hurt? Then you all just participated in the second step, which is to witness. To witness the experiences and stories of pain and suffering that emerge in response to the question. Witnessing is, first and foremost, a simple practice of deep listening, without talking, of being present to how we ourselves feel or to how others feel. Witnessing is knowing that silence is a form of communication. Yet witnessing is also a skilled practice that takes hard work and emotional and spiritual capacity, especially when we live in a culture that is hell-bent on distracting us from being present, especially to pain and suffering. That is part of why in the UU world we have lay ministers or pastoral caregivers who are trained in pastoral care and work together as a team. Notably, I have experienced that my ability to truly witness to others' pain and suffering as a chaplain, whether in one-to-one relationships or globally, is directly proportional to my ability to witness my own pain and suffering. In other words, the more present I become with my own wounds, the more present I can be to others' wounds. However, of course, as we say, we are a faith of deed, not creed. So a UU theology of lament would not stop with simply noticing and witnessing. Once ample witnessing has been offered, a UU theology of lament must ask those who are most acutely suffering, those most impacted by whatever violence or harm, is there anything we can also do to alleviate the pain, to repair or to heal or to prevent more harm from taking place? This, for example, would be the step in which we turn to our Palestinian American neighbors and say, how can we work together to stop the violence? And as our land acknowledgement today suggested, to our Coast Salish neighbors and say, what would true reparations look like for you and your kin? You see, beloveds, if justice is what love looks like in public, as Dr. Cornel West said, then justice is also what lament looks like in public. So a UU theology of lament must resist in every cell of our collective body the myth of individualism by singing over and over until it is part of our cultural DNA. We do not carry this all alone. No, we do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for us to carry this all alone. So we do not carry this all alone. Now is an opportune time for not only UU theologies of lament and grief, but hymns and songbooks, stories, curriculum, rituals, and more. May it be so. May we be part of creating the medicine that is grief. Blessed be and amen.
For that Beautiful music, interlude. And thank you, Elizabeth, for your very inspirational words here today. Let's hold a moment of contemplation and worship. An old English word that means to consider things of worth in a generous and abundant silence. Our last hymn is number 1064, Blue Boat Home. Rowan will play the melody through once, and then we'll join in singing hymn 1064. I'd like to invite our worship song leaders to come up front. They are here, I think, already. Some of them. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn 1064. Found in your teal hymnal. Thank you, Roan, very much. I think some of those fairies are actually blue, aren't they? So, we extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth and meaning in our hearts. Actually, I think you're going to come up and talk about that, aren't you?
As we extinguish this challenge, this chalice, we do not extinguish its warmth and meaning in our hearts. As we return to our daily lives, may we grow more capacity to feel our feelings. May we practice bearing witness to all that is. May we lament loudly and disruptively whenever and wherever we encounter injustice. May our tears flow freely from love towards liberation. And may we always remember we do not carry this all alone. Go in peace. But after announcements.
Our formal service is now over. I'd like to give a special thanks to Elizabeth, Micah Gashir, Rowan, Kim, Runa, our electronic music today, setup group number 1, and you all for participating in today's service. I just love the participatory parts of our service. So, today is the beginning of the month, and this is Birthday Pencil Day. But you know what?